How much do you know about the stability of your business? I mean, really, what's the stability of your revenue, of your customer acquisition, or even just your ability to not just keep growing, but to grow at an impressive rate? And think about that, because anybody who's really been watching knows that we've pretty much had a really good ride when it comes to business lately. Probably for the last decade or a little bit more than a decade. And if you look back in history and really study business trends, what you're gonna find is that there's a cycle of decades, or every 10 or 15 years or so. There's either an upswing or a downswing in the buying patterns and also in business growth. So I want to talk about stability in business. So when all hell breaks loose, or when the economy drops, or when you can't get employees to show up for work, your business is more likely to be one of those that keeps growing. Because if you've been running a business without focusing on stability, which includes having clear targets, clear guidelines, clear systems that help you keep growing through all the ups and downs, then that's like you might have a car that's running out of gas, right? I mean, you might have a very, very fast car, but it's still running out of gas. And for those of you like me who have been in business for more than 30 years, you've watched this cycle several times, and it always follows some kind of a big happening in the world. It happened after 9/11, and it happened a little quicker after the market crash, also after COVID, and now we have something even larger that's happening globally. And I think as business owners, it's important that we make our businesses more stable now, right? Today, before the end of this quarter, because every one of my companies and every company that I've ever invested in has survived, and most of them even thrived through the economic ups and downs because we were stable. And hell, I watched so many other strong businesses or fast cars that were flying past me in the past literally disappear because they weren't stable. And a lot of them were friends of mine who thought they were freaking immune, but when the economy changed, like it did during COVID, and like it does every 10 to 15 years, they took a big hit. And the sad part is that a few of them never made it back to where they were. So when I talk to them now, it's like talking to the old high school football player who never did anything else after high school. And every single time you talk to them, they want to relive that big game where they threw the touchdown, even though now they're 40 years old and they have a job that they hate. No disrespect to people who don't have glorious jobs, but definitely disrespect to somebody who has only achieved one thing in business, and their only happiness now comes from reliving that one thing over and over and over and over again. So the biggest thing that I hope you walk away from this is how very important it is to think about how stable your business is right now. How autonomous is it? How consistent is your growth? How predictable is your growth? Not just every year, but every quarter, and maybe even every month. Are you growing in revenue? Are you growing in the size of your audience, in the stability of your organization, in your profit? Last year, I sat in on a team meeting with a friend's company. And every single one at that meeting was complaining about how costs keep going up because their COGS were higher than they have ever been. And no one in that room, including my friend who owns the company, could think about anything other than raising their prices and then trying to mitigate the drop off from customers who didn't want to or who couldn't afford to pay their new prices. And what they didn't think about, at least not at first, was that their biggest current expenses were things like warehouse space and office rent and their team travel expenses, big expenses that were really kind of easy to reduce. You see, stability is often less about new sales and more about being smart about your spending. Now, don't get me wrong, we spend in my companies a lot of money on things that increase our sales, or more specifically our customer acquisition and our average order value and our lifetime value of our customers and on our team development. But we work hard to first have money for those things. And we do that often by saving a lot of money, by saying no to the most common bullshit expenses that come our way, not by overpaying for things. Because I promise you, if my friend's company had just raised prices, they probably would have temporarily been in a better position. But within 1 or 2 quarters, they'd be right back in the same position, struggling for growth. But what they did was something that every single company needs to do at least once a year, and it's shop and reduce expenses. And it doesn't matter if you're a $100,000 a year company or if your revenue is $1 million or $10 million or even $1 billion a year or more. At least every single year, every company or every department inside your company needs to reevaluate their expenses. In Club 28, which is our advisory firm, before anybody gets into that program, they first fill out a form that uncovers all of their expenses and all their sources of revenue, as well as a lot of other things. And There's companies in that program that are doing a few $1,000,000 a year, all the way up to companies doing billions of dollars a month. And every one of them gets value out of that one form before we even get started working together. It's the same piece of paperwork that I fill out when I'm looking at a potential acquisition, a company that we're potentially acquiring, and I need to know where all their expenses are and what their margin is for every single thing that they've got inside of their ecosphere. And what I find almost always is that most companies rarely understand how to properly track expenses, but when they actually get it, scaling a company becomes infinitely easier. In my companies, we have data managers, and the people in that position save us a lot of money. And if you've ever seen any of my other videos, you've probably heard me say that the two most very important hires that I've ever made is a kick-ass assistant and a data manager. Because my assistant makes me more productive and our data managers give me the most accurate numbers so that I can make good, fast decisions. Because no matter how much money we drive in or how much we scale, if our expenses are left unchecked, then we never have enough net profit to grow. At least not at the rate that we really could. So stability for my friend's company meant managing their expenses. So instead of raising their prices, they reduced their expenses and became far more stable. And where the competitors were struggling, they grew, and they grew past them. So how stable are you right now? What are you doing to protect your business from the ups and downs? And at the same time, propel yourself past your competition. It doesn't have to be reducing your expenses. Stability comes in a lot of different forms. But tell me in the comments below one expense that if you could reduce it, it'd be a game changer for you. And if this is the very first video of mine that you're seeing, hit that subscribe button so that you're first to get access to all of our other business growth videos. I'll see you on the next video.